Verified department records. Genuine field evidence. Unbiased justice. Welcome to Bodycam Incident Reports.
Tie the dog to the signpost. Now! You're being detained.
I'm standing still. That is a service animal. What crime am I suspected of?
I decide that. Give me your ID or this gets worse.
Being black in my own neighborhood is not reasonable suspicion.
Last warning!
You're making a serious mistake, officer.
The shout shattered the peace of a pristine Tuesday morning in the suburbs. The sun was shining, birds were chirping, and sprinklers were hissing on manicured lawns. Standing on the sidewalk was Elias Thorne, a 62-year-old man who carried himself with the kind of posture you don't learn in a corporate office. He was wearing a neatly pressed polo shirt, khaki shorts, and walking shoes. In his left hand, he held a leather leash attached to a Belgian Malinois that sat perfectly still, ears perked, watching the screaming man with intense discipline. The screaming man was Officer Kyle Braden. He was 28 years old, had been on the force for 4 years, and wore his uniform a little too tight, his sunglasses perched aggressively on his shaved head. He had parked his patrol SUV at a sharp angle against the curb, cutting off Elias's path. Braden's hand was hovering near his holster. "Officer," Elias said. His voice was a low rumble, calm as a millpond. "This is a service animal. He is under my command. I am standing still. What is the nature of this contact?" "Don't give me that lawyer speak," Braden yelled, stepping around the front of his cruiser. "We have a report of a burglary suspect in the area. Black male, dark clothing casing houses. You fit the description. Now tie the dog to the signpost and step away." Elias didn't move. He didn't blink. He looked at the officer, and then he looked down at his own clothing, a light blue polo and tan shorts. "Officer, I am wearing light blue and tan. I am walking my dog in my own neighborhood. I am not a burglary suspect, and I will not tie my service animal to a post. He is trained to stay by my side. I'm telling you for the last time." Braden snapped his face, flushing red. "You are detaining me from my investigation. You're resisting. Tie the dog up, or I will call animal control to have it seized." Officer Braden had absolutely no idea who he was talking to. He saw an older black man in a nice neighborhood and assumed he didn't belong. He assumed he would be scared. He assumed he would panic. But Elias Thorne had spent 22 years in the United States Army. He had retired as a command sergeant major. He had led men through the valleys of Afghanistan and the streets of Fallujah. He had been shot at by snipers and had survived IEDs. A shouting 28-year-old with a badge didn't scare him. It disappointed him. "Officer," Elias said, his voice dropping an octave, taking on the tone he used to use to correct junior lieutenants who were about to make fatal errors. "You are making a mistake. I am asking you to lower your voice and articulate your reasonable suspicion. Being black in a neighborhood on a Tuesday morning is not a crime. Before we go any further into this infuriating encounter, I need you to do something. If you believe that our veterans deserve respect, not harassment, hit that like button right now. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? This story is going to make your blood boil, but you need to see how it ends." Braden didn't like being corrected. He stepped into Elias's personal space. "I define reasonable suspicion here, pal. Not you. I need ID now." "Am I under arrest?" Elias asked. "You are detained," Braden shouted. "For what crime?" "Suspicious activity. Failure to identify. Now give me your ID or you're going in cuffs." Elias looked directly into Braden's eyes. "I don't have to provide ID unless you can articulate a specific crime I am suspected of committing. That is the law in this state. I live 3 blocks over on Elm Street. My name is Elias. I am going to turn around and finish my walk." Elias made a motion to turn. Braden lunged. The moment Elias shifted his weight to turn, Officer Braden made his move. He didn't just reach for Elias. He reached for his taser. "Don't you walk away from me," Braden screamed, unholstering the yellow device and pointing it at Elias's chest. The red laser dot danced on the blue fabric of Elias's polo shirt. "Turn around. Get on your knees. If that dog takes one step, I will put him down. Do you hear me?" The Belgian Malinois gunner let out a low, guttural growl. The dog sensed the threat. His muscles coiled. But Elias didn't flinch. He didn't raise his hands in surrender. He held them out to his sides, palms open, non-threatening but firm. "Gunner, stand down," Elias commanded. The dog instantly went silent, though his eyes remained locked on the officer. Elias looked back at Braden. "Officer, you are pointing a less lethal weapon at a senior citizen walking a dog. Look around you. It's 10 o'clock a.m. on a Tuesday. There are witnesses." And there were. The commotion had drawn attention. 2 houses down, Mrs. Higgins, a woman in her 50s who ran the Neighborhood Homeowners Association, had stepped out onto her porch. She was holding her phone and the lens was pointed directly at them. A landscaper across the street had cut the engine of his mower and was watching. "I don't care who's watching," Braden yelled, though his eyes darted nervously toward Mrs. Higgins. "You are refusing a lawful order. Get on your knees." "I have bad knees, son," Elias said calmly. "I gave them to this country about 30 years before you were born. I'm not getting on the ground. If you are going to arrest me, you come over here and you do it. But do not hurt my dog." Braden was vibrating with adrenaline. He had lost control of the situation. In his mind, he had to assert dominance or he would look weak. He holstered the taser and pulled his handcuffs. "Fine. Have it your way." Braden rushed forward, grabbing Elias's left wrist and wrenching it behind his back with unnecessary force. Elias didn't resist. He allowed his arm to be moved, his body turning with the momentum. He knew exactly what this was. This wasn't policing. This was an ego trip. "You're under arrest for obstruction and resisting an officer." Braden spat, clicking the first cuff onto Elias's wrist. "Gunner, stay," Elias said firmly. The dog whimpered, but didn't move. Mrs. Higgins was running down her driveway now. "Hey, what are you doing? That's Elias. He lives here." Braden whipped his head around. "Ma'am, stay back. This is an active police investigation. Interfere, and you're next." "He walks his dog every morning," Mrs. Higgins yelled, stopping at the edge of the sidewalk, phone still recording. "He's a veteran. What is wrong with you?" "He matched a description," Braden yelled back, struggling to get the second cuff on Elias, mostly because Elias's shoulders were broad and stiff from years of weightlifting. "What description?" Elias asked, his face pressed against the hood of the patrol car now. "The description was dark clothing. I'm in pastels. You just saw a black man and decided I was guilty." "Shut up." Braden slammed the second cuff shut. "Now what do we do with the beast I'm calling animal control?" "No, you are not," Mrs. Higgins said, stepping closer. "I'll take Gunner. I know the dog. He knows me." Braden hesitated. He wanted to punish Elias by sending the dog to the pound, but he knew the woman was recording. "Fine," Braden sneered. "Take the mutt, but if he bites you, it's on you." Mrs. Higgins walked up slowly. "Come here, Gunner. It's okay, boy." She took the leash from Elias's handcuffed hand. She looked at Elias, her eyes wide with worry. "Elias, I've got everything on video. I'm calling your wife." "Thank you, Martha," Elias said, his voice steady. "Don't call Sarah yet. She's at dialysis. Call my lawyer. The number is in my contacts. Tell him code red." Braden shoved Elias toward the back door of the SUV. "Get in. You can tell your lawyer all about it from a cell." The back of a police interceptor is a humiliating place for anyone, but for a man who had spent 2 decades enforcing discipline and order, it was a special kind of insult. The hard plastic seat forced Elias to sit at an awkward angle. His wrists, handcuffed behind his back, throbbed. The rotator cuff he had torn in the Gulf War began to ache. Outside, the neighborhood was fully awake now. More neighbors had come out. They stood in clusters, pointing and whispering. To them, Elias was the pillar of the community. He was the guy who organized the block parties. He was the one who used his snowblower on everyone's driveway in the winter. Seeing him stuffed into a patrol car like a common criminal was jarring. Officer Braden slammed the door shut, sealing Elias inside. Braden walked around the car, puffing his chest out, adjusting his belt. He felt good. He felt powerful. He had taken down a suspect who thought he was above the law. He stopped to say something to Mrs. Higgins, pointing a finger in her face, likely warning her about the footage. Elias couldn't hear the words, but he read the body language. Braden was threatening her. Elias closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He began to categorize the violations. 1, no reasonable suspicion for the stop. The clothing description didn't match. 2, unlawful detention. He was prevented from leaving without probable cause. 3, excessive force. The wrenching of the arm was punitive, not necessary. 4, unlawful arrest. Refusal to ID is not a crime in this state unless the officer has reasonable suspicion of a crime which Braden did not have. Braden got into the driver's seat. He didn't start the car immediately. He turned around to look at Elias through the plexiglass divider. "You know," Braden said, a smirk playing on his lips, "if you'd just shown me your ID and been humble, you'd be finishing your walk right now. You people always have to make it a civil rights thing. You have to have an attitude." Elias opened his eyes. He stared through the glass. He didn't speak. "What? Nothing to say now." Braden laughed. "Cat got your tongue, or are you realizing you messed up?" Elias remained silent. In the military, he had been trained in seer survival, evasion resistance, and escape. He knew that anything he said right now would be twisted. He knew that his silence was more powerful than any argument. He also knew that the body camera on Braden's chest was recording, or should be. Every taunt Braden made was a nail in his own career coffin. "Whatever," Braden muttered, turning back to the steering wheel. "We'll see how tough you are when we get to processing. I bet you have a warrant. That's why you didn't want to show ID. Probably a deadbeat dad or something." Braden started the engine and peeled away from the curb, driving faster than necessary through the residential zone. Elias watched his house disappear out the back window. He thought about Gunnar. He thought about his wife, Sarah. And then a cold, hard resolve settled in his chest. Officer Braden thought he was taking a criminal to jail. He didn't realize he was transporting a lawsuit that would bankrupt the department. Elias wasn't just a retired soldier. He was a man of principle. And he was about to give Officer Braden a lesson in accountability that no academy class could ever teach. Have you ever been accused of something you didn't do just because of how you looked? Type yes or no in the comments below. It's more common than you think. The drive to the precinct took 20 minutes. For Officer Braden, it was 20 minutes of frustration. He was used to suspects begging, crying, or cursing. He was used to the "I didn't do it" routine or the "my dad is a lawyer" threats. He knew how to handle those. He thrived on the conflict. But Elias Thorne offered him nothing. Elias sat perfectly upright in the back seat, swaying slightly with the motion of the car. He looked out the window, observing the streets, the traffic, the flow of the city. His face was a mask of stone. "You comfortable back there?" Braden asked, glancing in the rearview mirror. "I can turn the AC off if you want to sweat a little." Silence. "I'm talking to you," Braden said, his voice rising. "Ignorance isn't going to help your case. You're facing obstruction charges. Maybe resisting arrest. Depending on what we find in your pockets, maybe worse." Silence. Braden turned on the radio, blasting talk radio loud, trying to get a reaction. Elias didn't flinch. He was mentally replaying the encounter frame by frame, memorizing the details while they were fresh. He noted the time on the dashboard clock, 10:22 a.m. He noted Braden's reckless lane changes. He noted the fact that Braden was texting on his personal cell phone while driving a police vehicle. Texting while driving. Violation of department policy. Violation of state law. Elias filed that away. Braden was getting unnerved. The silence felt heavy. It felt judgmental. It wasn't the silence of a scared man. It was the silence of a man who was waiting. "You think you're better than me," Braden muttered almost to himself. "You think because you live in a nice house you don't have to follow the rules. I protect that neighborhood. I'm the line between you and the animals." Elias almost smiled at the irony. He had spent 22 years on that line in places Braden couldn't find on a map. He had protected freedoms that Braden was currently treating like toilet paper, but he kept the smile inside. They pulled into the precinct Sallyport. The garage door rumbled shut behind them, blocking out the sunlight. Braden killed the engine. "End of the line," Braden announced. "Last chance to tell me who you really are before I find out myself." Elias looked at him. Finally he spoke. His voice was calm, deep, and resonant in the enclosed space. "My name is Elias James Thorne, and I want my phone call." Braden laughed. Yeah. Everyone wants a phone call. Let's go." He hauled Elias out of the car. He didn't be gentle. He gripped Elias's arm tight and marched him toward the booking area. Braden walked with a swagger, parading his catch. He pushed through the heavy steel doors into the processing room, expecting high fives from his colleagues. "Got a live one," Braden announced to the room. "Refused to ID resisting. Possible burglary suspect based on description." The processing room was busy, but the desk sergeant, a man named Miller, who had been on the job for 30 years, looked up from his computer. Miller was old school. He had gray hair, a thick mustache, and tired eyes. He looked at Braden, then he looked at the man in handcuffs. Miller's eyes narrowed. He squinted. He didn't look at Elias's clothes. He looked at his face. He looked at the way Elias was standing, feet shoulder-width apart, chin up, despite the cuffs. "Braden," Miller said slowly. "Bring him to the counter." Braden shoved Elias forward. "Empty your pockets. Everything on the counter." Elias couldn't empty his own pockets because he was cuffed. Braden did it for him, roughly pulling out a wallet, keys, and a folded handkerchief. He tossed the wallet onto the counter. "Check him for warrants, Sarge," Braden said, leaning back against the wall, crossing his arms. "I bet he's got a sheet a mile long." Sergeant Miller picked up the wallet. It was a simple, high-quality leather bifold. He opened it. The first thing he saw wasn't a driver's license. It was a retired military identification card. Miller looked closer. The rank listed was Command Sergeant Major. E9, the highest enlisted rank in the Army. Miller flipped the flap of the wallet. Behind the ID was a challenge coin encased in plastic. It was a specific coin, Green Beret, Special Forces, and tucked behind that was a small laminated card that some veterans carry, a card listing their awards: Silver Star, Bronze Star with V device, Purple Heart 2 times. The room seemed to get very quiet. Sergeant Miller looked up from the wallet. He looked at Elias. Then he looked at Braden, who was still smirking. "Braden," Miller said, his voice dangerously low, "take the cuffs off. Now." "What?" Braden blinked, confused. "Sarge, he's a suspect. He refused to ID. I haven't even processed him yet." "I said..." Miller stood up his chair, scraping loudly against the floor. "Take the damn cuffs off him. Right now." The other officers in the room stopped what they were doing. The tone in Miller's voice wasn't just authoritative, it was fearful. "Sarge, I don't understand," Braden stammered, his arrogance faltering. "He fits the description. He was uncooperative." "Look at the ID, you idiot," Miller hissed, sliding the wallet across the counter toward Braden. Braden picked it up. He looked at the military ID. He looked at the rank. Command Sergeant Major. He looked at the face on the ID, then at the man standing in front of him. You arrested a Command Sergeant Major? Miller asked, coming around the desk. Do you know who this is? This is Elias Thorne. He was the keynote speaker at the City Veterans Day Parade 3 months ago. The mayor shook his hand. Braden's face went pale. I didn't know. He wouldn't tell me. He didn't have to tell you, Miller barked. He pulled a key from his belt and unlocked Elias's handcuffs himself. Mr. Thorne, I'm incredibly sorry. I don't know what happened out there, but Elias rubbed his wrists. There were red welts where the metal had dug in. He looked at Miller, then he turned his gaze to Braden. Braden looked like a child who had just broken an expensive vase. Sergeant Miller, Elias said. I remember you. You were at the parade. You served in the Marines' first Gulf War, correct? Yes, Sergeant Major, Miller said instinctively, standing at attention. Good memory, Elias said. He turned to Braden. Officer Braden here detained me while I was walking my dog on my own street. He threatened to shoot my service animal. He arrested me for failure to identify despite having no articulable reasonable suspicion of a crime. He twisted my rotator cuff, which was reconstructed after an IED blast in Kandahar. And he spent the entire ride over here lecturing me on how my people need to learn respect. The silence in the booking room was suffocating. Every officer was staring at Braden. Braden was looking at his boots. He matched the description, Braden whispered, but the fight was gone from his voice. The description was dark clothing, Elias said sharply. I am wearing light blue. Is that dark to you, son? Braden didn't answer. I want the watch commander, Elias said to Miller. Now. He's on his way down, Sergeant Major, Miller said. Please have a seat. Can I get you some water? Coffee? I don't want coffee, Elias said. I want my property returned. I want the body camera footage secured immediately so it cannot be deleted or lost. And I want a medical evaluation for my shoulder. Done, and done, Miller said. Braden tried to inch away back toward the door. Where are you going? Elias asked. He didn't yell, but the command voice stopped Braden cold. You wanted to process me, so process me. Write your report. Put your name on it. Because when my lawyer sees it, I want there to be no doubt about who is responsible. Braden looked at Sergeant Miller for help. Miller just shook his head. You heard the man, Braden. Go to the report room, start typing, and God help you if you lie about a single detail. The door to the booking room opened and a lieutenant walked in. He looked flushed, like he had run down the stairs. He saw Elias rubbing his wrist. He saw the look on Miller's face. He saw Braden cowering. Mr. Thorne, the lieutenant said, extending a hand. I'm Lieutenant O'Malley. I just got the call. There seems to have been a terrible misunderstanding. Elias didn't shake the hand. He looked at it, then looked O'Malley in the eye. It wasn't a misunderstanding, Lieutenant. It was a civil rights violation. It was profiling. And it was assault. And if you think you can unarrest me and make this go away with a handshake, you are sorely mistaken. Lieutenant O'Malley was a politician in a uniform. He knew how to spin things. He knew how to smooth over ruffled feathers. But he had never dealt with someone like Elias Thorne. Please, let's go to my office, O'Malley said, gesturing toward the hallway. We can discuss this privately. I'm sure we can clear this up. I have nothing to hide, Elias said, his voice projecting so every officer in the room could hear. We can talk right here. Your officer arrested me. He booked me. Am I free to go or am I being charged? You're free to go, of course, O'Malley said quickly. We're releasing you immediately, voiding the arrest. It never happened. It did happen, Elias countered. I was handcuffed in front of my neighbors. My dog was threatened. I was put in a cage. You can't just hit delete on Reality Lieutenant. We will launch an immediate internal investigation, O'Malley promised, sweat beading on his forehead. Officer Braden will be placed on administrative leave pending the outcome. We take this very seriously. I'm sure you do, Elias said. But I'm not waiting for your internal investigation. I'm filing a federal lawsuit under Title 42, Section 1983, violation of Fourth Amendment rights, unlawful search and seizure, excessive force. O'Malley winced at the legal terms. Elias knew exactly what he was talking about. Sir, is that really necessary? O'Malley lowered his voice. Litigation takes years. It's expensive. We can work something out. An apology, a settlement. It's not about the money. Elias cut him off. It's about him. He pointed a finger at the door where Braden had exited. That young man shouldn't be carrying a badge and a gun. He is a danger to the public. He profiled me. He escalated a non-event into a felony stop. What happens when he stops a kid who doesn't have my discipline? What happens when he stops a teenager who gets scared and runs? He shoots him. That's what happens. Elias stepped closer to the lieutenant. I served 22 years to defend the Constitution. I'll be damned if I let a 28-year-old bully trample on it in my own backyard. I understand your frustration, O'Malley said. No, you don't, but you will. Elias turned to Sergeant Miller. Am I free to leave? Yes, Sergeant Major, you are free to go. I need a ride home, Elias said. And not in a police car. I'm done with police cars for today. I'll drive you myself, Miller said, grabbing his personal keys. My truck is out back. As Elias walked out of the station, the adrenaline began to fade, replaced by a deep, aching exhaustion. His shoulder was throbbing. He worried about Gunner, but his mind was already drafting the conversation he would have with his lawyer. He knew how these things worked. The department would try to bury it. They would claim qualified immunity. They would say Braden made a good faith mistake. But Elias had an ace in the hole. He had Mrs. Higgins, and he had the video she shot. 2 days later, Elias's lawyer, a shark of a civil rights attorney named David Ross, sent a preservation letter to the department. He demanded all footage, all radio logs, and Braden's disciplinary file. The department stalled. They claimed the investigation was ongoing. They refused to release the body cam footage to the public. So Elias did what any good strategist does. He flanked them. Mrs. Higgins posted her video to social media. The video was titled, Cop Threatens to Shoot Veteran's Dog Arrests Him for Walking While Black. It started shaky, zooming in on Braden, pointing the taser at Elias. The audio was crystal clear. If that dog takes one step, I will put him down. Then the image of Elias, calm, hands out. I gave my knees to this country. Then the arrest, the twisting of the arm, the neighbors yelling. It went viral overnight. 1 million views, 5 million, 10 million. The comments section was a war zone, but the overwhelming sentiment was fury. Veterans groups shared it. Dog lovers shared it. Civil rights activists shared it. It was the perfect storm of outrage. He served 22 years, and this is how he gets treated. Fire that cop immediately. The discipline of the veteran versus the ego of the cop. Stunning. The media descended on the quiet suburban neighborhood. News trucks parked on Elias's lawn. Reporters knocked on Mrs. Higgins' door. Pressure mounted on the police chief. He called a press conference. He looked tired. He announced that Officer Braden was suspended without pay. He promised transparency. But then the second shoe dropped. An anonymous source within the department, rumored to be a disgruntled clerk tired of the corruption, leaked Officer Braden's body camera footage to a local investigative journalist. If Mrs. Higgins's video was bad, the body cam was worse. It showed the entire interaction from Braden's perspective. It showed Elias clearly visible in light clothing. It captured Braden muttering, Another one of these guys, before he even exited the car. It captured the ride to the station, the taunts, the texting while driving, the admission of bias, and then the investigative journalist dug deeper. They requested public records of Braden's stops for the last 2 years. The data was damning. Officer Braden worked in a precinct that was 85% white. Yet 60% of his traffic stops and pedestrian checks involved black men. He had a pattern. He hunted them. He stopped them for broken taillights that weren't broken for failing to signal in parking lots. The burglary suspect Braden claimed to be looking for. The journalist found the original dispatch call. The suspect was described as a teenager in a black hoodie. Elias was 62 and wearing a polo shirt. The lie was exposed. Qualified immunity protects officers who make reasonable mistakes. It does not protect officers who lie, fabricate evidence, and violate clearly established constitutional rights based on racial bias. The city council held an emergency meeting. The mayor was furious. The police union, usually quick to defend their own, went silent. The video was too clear. Defending Braden was political suicide. Elias sat in his living room watching the news with Sarah. Gunnar was at his feet. "They're going to fire him," Sarah said softly. "Firing isn't enough," Elias said. "He needs to be made an example." It took 6 weeks. The Internal Affairs investigation concluded that Officer Kyle Braden had violated 7 distinct department policies, including excessive force racial profiling and conduct unbecoming an officer. The termination letter was public. Braden was fired. But Elias didn't stop there. His lawsuit proceeded. The city, desperate to avoid a jury trial where Elias, a decorated war hero, would take the stand, offered a settlement. They started at $100,000. Elias refused. They went to $250,000. Elias refused. They went to $500,000. Elias accepted. But he added a condition. The settlement had to include a formal written apology from the chief of police read into the public record. And the department had to institute mandatory quarterly de-escalation training for all officers taught by outside experts. The city agreed. The check for $500,000 was deposited. Elias paid his lawyer, paid his taxes, and then did something that surprised everyone. He took the remaining money, roughly $300,000, and started the Thorn Legal Defense Fund. Its mission to provide high-quality legal representation for veterans and active duty service members who have been victims of police misconduct. Elias never wanted to be a public figure. He just wanted to walk his dog. But he answered the call of duty one last time. The story ends on a Tuesday morning exactly 1 year later. The sun is shining. The sprinklers are hissing. Elias is walking down the same sidewalk. Gunnar is by his side, gray fur starting to show on the dog's muzzle. Elias walks with a slight limp now. The shoulder surgery set him back a bit, and the stress took a toll on his body. But his head is high. A police cruiser turns the corner. It slows down. Elias tenses up. His hand tightens on the leash. The trauma is still there. It never fully goes away. The window rolls down. It's a young officer, maybe 25. A woman. She looks at Elias. "Good morning, Sergeant Major," she says respectfully. She waves. Elias breathes out. He nods. "Good morning, officer." The car drives on. Elias stops. He looks down at Gunnar. He looks at the peaceful street. He realizes that while he won his battle, the war isn't over. There are other Bradens out there. There are other men like him, men who served their country only to be treated like enemies in their own neighborhoods. But for today, for this moment, he is free. He is unbothered. He is just a man walking his dog. "Come on, Gunnar," he whispers. "Let's go home." Conclusion. This story isn't just about one bad apple. It's about the systems that allow them to rot and the courage it takes to stand up when you have everything to lose. Elias Thorne didn't fight back with fists. He fought back with dignity, the truth, and the law. He showed us that true strength isn't about being loud or aggressive. It's about knowing who you are and refusing to be moved. What would you have done if you were in Elias's shoes? Would you have kept your cool or would you have lost it? And do you think the settlement was enough justice for what he went through? Let me know in the comments below. And if you believe in holding authority accountable, please like and subscribe. We need to keep telling these stories until we don't have to anymore. Stay safe out there.
Every historical record holds a profound story waiting to be carefully uncovered. Every story we explore is a deliberate step closer to the ultimate truth. Thank you for joining us on this vital journey of discovery today.